Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Pinchas, which is the Hebrew word for Phineas, and that is because the very beginning of the Torah portion begins with the actions of Phineas, or just finishing the actions of Phineas as a result of the sin of the nation of Israel with Baal Peor, and it begins with the blessings that are given to Phineas. But I would like to focus on something that happens further on in the portion, and that's in chapter 27. Here we have a story of 5 women, all daughters of a man named Zelophehad in English, I believe, and they have a problem. Their father has died. He died in the desert, and he has no sons. Now, the territories will be apportioned in the land of Israel based upon the men in the family. Each man entering the land of Israel will receive a territory, and then that territory will continue to be passed on to the family, to the next generations. Here we have a family, an entire family of women, but there are no men in the family. They have no brothers, and their father has already died. And it's very important for them that they receive the territory that would have originally gone to the father. Okay, now, first of all, I just want to point out a couple of things. They make clear in verse 3 that their father was not part of the group that tried to rebel against Moses and Aaron with Korach that we read about earlier. And why is that significant? And I believe that this is coming from what was a common policy in the ancient world. If somebody were to rebel against the king, not only would he lose his life, but his territory, his property, would escheat to the state. The king would have the right to seize the property of that rebel, so that the children of the rebel would also suffer, because they would lose whatever inheritance they normally would have received. Instead of the property of this person who was killed because he rebelled against the king, instead of that property becoming the property of his descendants, instead the property goes to the king. So whether or not that would have been the case here, it makes sense that for these daughters, it's important for them to make sure Moses understands there is no right here for the state, so-called, perhaps for I don't know. In general, there's no reason for them to lose their inheritance because their father was not part of a rebellion. Anyway, so of course Moses is not sure what to do with this problem. Many feminists see this as an early example of women standing up for themselves. It's not fair. We're women. Why do the men get the territory and we don't get the territory? But if you actually look carefully, they're not saying we need to receive the territory just like the men. I think if they were to have said that, that would have been incredibly anachronistic. However, what they are saying is that when you go into Israel, each family has a piece of property, has a territory that belongs to them. And in a way, that enables that family name to be carried forward. Every person who will then inherit a piece of that land going onward knows that they belong to that family. And here there is a family. This is part of the tribe of Manasseh, but there is a family, and that family is called Zelophehad. And if they are not able to receive any territory, it's not just what they are that they will not receive, but it's that their father's name will be gone. There will be no way to memorialize the father or to have a piece of property in the land of Israel that will be on the name of the father, as if the father never existed. And this is really what is bothering them. Now, one of the things, though, that, of course, in the end, there is a new ruling that God hands down in the case where a man has this property and there are no sons, then the daughters inherit instead, and therefore they are promised a territory in their own right in the land of Israel. Later on, at the very end of the book of Numbers, there's an addendum to the story when there's another rule of inheritance, that when a woman marries, her husband actually becomes the owner of her property. And at the end of the book, the other people in this tribe of Manasseh are very concerned. Here are 5 women. They're not married. Once they marry, this piece of property that is under Tzlafchad's name, but which is within the tribe or the territory of Manasseh, once they marry, then if they marry someone outside of the tribe of Manasseh, that piece of land will therefore belong to another tribe. And therefore, at the very end of this book of Numbers, there's an additional ruling that said these particular 5 women need to marry men. They can marry any man they want, which I think is also interesting. We're not talking about matchmaking here without asking the woman. It says very clearly they can marry any man they want, but he should be from their own tribe, from the tribe of Manasseh, in order to keep this land within the tribe. So, all that is very interesting. However, I think one of the things we see here in this whole story is the incredible love of these people, of these women, for the land of Israel. They not only want to go into the land, they want to have a holding in this land. It's not coming from a financial need. It's coming from a need to have a piece of the land of Israel. And I would go further than that and note, you will probably recall that the tribe of Manasseh was a very unusual tribe. First of all, it was a huge tribe. And second of all, they're the only tribe that had a split or divided territory. Half of the tribe settled in what was known as the land of Canaan, the part of the land of Israel west of the Jordan River, the part that is in Israel as we know it today. And the other part of the tribe, the other half of the tribe, remained on the eastern side of the Jordan River, where they were together with Reuben and Gad in an area of the country in an area that was less part or less holy, less central to the part of the land of Israel. As you recall, this was an initiative of Reuben and Gad that asked, and this happens later on in this book, where they asked to stay there because the land is very good for their livestock, and they prefer to stay there. What we notice, however, is that these daughters of Tzlafchad, who could have stayed with a part of the family that they were actually very closely related to. They are part of the family of Gilead, and the Gilead part of the family, for the most part, was east of the Jordan River. They're the mountains of Jordan, what we see directly across from Samaria. Those mountains are the biblical mountains of Gilead. That is where the family of Gilead settled. So that's part of their families. They could have easily stayed there, and they may well have gotten an even greater portion of land. It was vast stretches of land over there, grazing land, and etc. And yet we find that they all end up west of the Jordan River. In fact, they are almost all of them in Samaria. Now, how do we know this? Because there are certain places, for example, that we've learned about later on in the Bible that show up, and some archaeological remains have given us amazing insight into this as well. So let's start with the daughter whose name is Tirzah. Now, Tirzah is actually the name of a wadi, of a dry riverbed that we know even today. It goes below the Oak of Moreh, the community of Elon Moreh, and it leads from there directly to the Jordan Valley, and that is to the Jordan River. Why is it called the river of Tirzah? Well, it is located in the territory of the Tirzah family, and in fact, Tirzah is also the name of a city that was captured by Joshua in that area right outside of Shechem. It's noted in Joshua chapter 12, verse 24. And later on, when Jeroboam establishes his capital, the capital of the northern Israel, he establishes in the city of Tirzah. Okay? Another place that we learn is Machlah. One of the daughters is named Machlah. And this is thought to be the modern community of Mecholah, which is also a biblical community that's located further down below. It's very close to the Jordan River. It's down towards the bottom of the Sumerian hills. That is named for her, for Nachalah, and that's where she would have resided. Also, some years ago, they discovered some pottery pieces that had writings on them dating back to the time of the northern kingdom, of the northern kings of Israel. And these pottery shards are different kinds of tax receipts and things like that. But what's fascinating about them is they actually refer to names of families in the tribe of Manasseh, and one of them is Noah, and one of them is Hoglah. So here we have 4 out of the 5 women of this family, the 5 women of Tzlofchad. We have both biblical and archaeological proof that this is where they settled. They settled here in Samaria because they loved the land of Israel and they wanted to be in the center of the land of Israel. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below as well as on the notification bell, and that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.